And it felt like there was this collective group thing, mind, experience that's outside of yourself that...
Kind of like a cult.
Kind of like a cult.
Open your eyes and look clearly at what's going on around you.
I've read that Yorgos has like an extensive and not super structured like rehearsal period.
He, comes from kind of avant-garde Greek theater background.
Dance.
And so dance, and so some of it is sort of rooted in that, but I think he's been kind of doing this for such a long time that it seems like it's a mix of games, exercises he's learned, games he's making up on the spot. There's some sort of structure, but it's hard to put your finger on. But it kind of does a few things. One, it obviously brings the cast together in a way that would not happen nearly as quickly if you weren't all kind of hurling yourself into these ridiculous games. And the first few days I was in an analytical way trying to figure out what the point of it is. It's like, is it to make me feel lost? Because that's working. That's how I feel. But then another thing it does, which I think is interesting, is I'm such a huge fan of Yorgos' work, and I think there's a weight for me personally stepping into this world, reading the script, and some exercises you'll read the script as written, then you'll do some game and do the scene from memory. So in a lot of ways, he's kind of taking any reverence away from the actual scene, and you're just kind of messing it up. And so it just loosens the whole thing up, any preconceived ideas or anything like that.
If I can add something too, it really sets the stage for what you're basically doing when you're shooting the film and creating that call and response structure between an actor and a director. It's like, yes, it makes a company together, but when I did this first time on Poor Things, did the rehearsal for Poor Things, I learned more about Yorgos than anyone else. And it kind of set the stage for what the line of communication was and how he likes to propose, and then what his expectations are and how he arrives at not a conclusion, but how he proceeds, how he works. It was really helpful.
And you get the sense that there is, in those rehearsals, there is no wrong choice if you're fully committing. If you're not, then that's a different story. But
I was struck by the sort of deadpan delivery that was so present in all of your dialogue. Willem, can you talk a little bit about sort of how that's communicated to you from him?
I think the basic thing is Yorgos is allergic to anything that feels like acting. He wants people there. He wants, he wants the experience. He doesn't want a show. He wants something else. I remember when I was working with Nicole Kidman on something, and she had worked with him on Killing of the Sacred Deer, and she said, just know, be careful. He's not going to want you to act. And that's not quite true. But, you get the sense. The tone is not about an actor's show. It's about a bunch of people coming together to play around with a world,
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of David Lynch a little bit. Is that fair? Like, did you feel comparisons?
That's fair. That's fair, because there's something, and the world and what is happening it's not, it doesn't have the ego of actors performing, you've got to melt into it. You've got to give over to it. I mean, I would say that for any movie, quite frankly, but the way he constructs it really lends itself to that. And that's why I say, he gives you so much fun to do. Because in a funny way, you're engaged but it's not on you. It's not on you to produce this thing. It's not about producing something. It's about having an experience and applying yourself to what he's giving you in terms of the world, in terms of the text, and in terms of some of the things that he's trying. And that I'm totally down with, because I think that's the way of performing. It's not about showing, it's about doing and experiencing.
And it felt like there was this collective group thing, mind, experience that's outside of yourself that...
Kind of like a cult.
Kind of like a cult. But I'm not wrong, right? It's like there is some collective unconscious that you kind of have to tap into. Yeah, exactly.
This does feel like some of Yorgos's older stuff. And it's interesting. I wonder if people maybe after Poor Things and The Favorite will maybe think they're getting something else coming into this, you know what I mean? Is that something you're cognizant of as actors when you take projects like sort of mass appeal and accessibility?
Not really until it's coming out. And then the reality of people seeing it hits you. But I will say, when I read the script, I felt like this is obviously a movie that could only be made by him, and something that could only be written by him and Lanthimos, and a movie that, a brilliant director that's earned a little room to kind of really do what he wants. It's kind of, I did have that thought early on.
What about you, Willem?
I always have an awareness, or I have some sort of expectation or an imagination about where this movie will sit in the world. But that's the initial thing, and then you forget about it, because then it's for you. It's not for, it's just to identify where it sits in the world, and then you forget about it. And then, of course, as always, I'm kind of an idiot this way. I always assume if I love it, other people will love it.
I'm still pissed more people haven't seen Inside. That was like one of my favorite movies last
very
year,
good.
So.
The problem with that is it doesn't have a narrative, and some people that are addicted to narrative, they find that movie really frustrating, because while there are people that really like it, there are some people that hate it because they need to hop on the bus. And this is a movie that really lets you participate, lets you experience it with this guy. Thank you, though. I won't waste our time on Inside, but thank you.